the threshold of revelation, deep within you, beyond the noise of the world, there exists a quiet and wise source of light. It needs no rituals, no symbols, only a still breath and pure awareness. From that emptiness, a calling arises soft as the wind, yet powerful enough to awaken every old boundary. Since the dawn of consciousness, ancient masters have whispered of a realm of understanding beyond human reason, something they call the 33 degrees of wisdom. They did not see it as words to be memorized, but as a living force capable of awakening the soul. Those who touched that state of knowing realized that the universe was never outside of them, but breathing through them. This wisdom does not promise power to control. It invites you onto the path of self-mastery. Like a skilled craftsman shaping raw material into a masterpiece, you too can sculpt the fabric of your own existence into the form you desire. It all begins with a simple realization that you are not separate from the creative force of the universe. Every thought you nurture is a current of energy. Every emotion you hold in your heart is a frequency, and those vibrations are composing the next chapter of your life. When you understand this not through reason, but through experience, the boundary between creator and creation dissolves. You no longer pray for change, you become the change itself. Today, in this very moment, you stand before the threshold of revelation. No teacher is leading you, only the echo of your own inner wisdom slowly opening. Let your heart grow still, like a calm lake reflecting the sky. From that stillness, the 33 degrees of wisdom begin to whisper, not in words, but in feeling. This journey is not about learning more, but about remembering, not about searching, but about recognizing what has always been. When the inner eyes open, you will see that the entire universe has always been here, waiting for you to step in. And in that sacred stillness, a voice arises, gentle and clear, calling you to awaken, you who carry within yourself the flame of creation. The first glance, awakening the power within. In the ancient city of Caravel, where the sound of church bells blended with the whisper of the sea, there lived a young apprentice named Ethan. He was curious and yearned to understand what lay beyond reach. One evening, while cleaning the dust-covered library of an old monastery, the oil lamp in his hand cast its light upon a worn tapestry. Beneath it, a narrow passage appeared. A cool breath drifted upward like the sigh of time itself. Ethan bent down, held up his lamp, and stepped below. The stone staircase led him into a hidden chamber where hundreds of ancient scrolls rested neatly as if waiting for someone to awaken them. On the table lay one scroll tied with a faintly glowing silver thread. As he untied it, the symbols inside shimmered gently, moving as if alive. Each line seemed to breathe and whisper an invitation. From that night on, Ethan returned to the chamber every evening. For many days, he sat in silence, reading and listening. The scrolls spoke of no rituals or miracles, but of simple truths that felt strangely profound. The power of a smile, the rhythm of breathing, the kindness in a gaze, the stillness between two thoughts. In that stillness, one line said, "You will hear the voice of the universe." Ethan began to notice his breath, the beating of his heart, the way sunlight passed through the window each morning. He realized that ordinary things carried a mysterious harmony. One day, as he sat on the monastery steps, he noticed a drop of dew resting on a young leaf. It was so small it seemed meaningless, yet when the sun rose, it reflected the entire sky. Ethan understood then that the universe moved in perfect precision. The drop of dew formed, grew round, and vanished at the exact moment it was meant to. His life, too, followed such order. Nothing was random. He had simply not been still enough to see it. An old woman from the village once told him a story of a king who suffered because his kingdom was in chaos. A hermit came to him and said, "Learn from the dew." The king did not understand, but followed the advice. For many mornings he sat quietly watching drops of dew form and fade, observing the cycle of water and light. One day he understood that his kingdom, like nature, needed harmony, not control. From then on, he ruled with calmness, and his land flourished as never before. That story echoed in Ethan's mind. He saw how people around him sought strength outside themselves in power, in wealth, in fame, forgetting that the true source lay in their own breath. He began a new practice. Each night he sat by candlelight, relaxed his mind, and let the images of the day drift away like clouds. He did not judge, he only observed. In a small notebook, he wrote down the moments that moved his heart: the sunlight through the trees, a stranger's smile, the sound of the waves. As time passed, patterns began to form in his notes. What once seemed separate became connected. He noticed that when he was joyful, good things came easily, and when he was anxious, life grew tangled. He understood there was an invisible law linking the heart and the world. Life was not a series of random events, but a mirror reflecting his inner state. When his heart was clear, the world was clear. One autumn evening, as the sea breeze drifted through his window, Ethan closed his eyes and listened to it as though it were the voice of the ancient masters. He realized that the scrolls were never meant to teach him something new, but to help him remember. To remember that the creative power of the universe flowed within him. To remember that miracles were not far away, but hidden in each gentle breath and kind thought. From that day, he began to see differently. Sunlight through the clouds was no longer just light, but a message. A child's laughter was no longer just joy, but the rhythm of life. Even sorrow carried a gift, the gift of awakening. He learned to give thanks for everything, even for difficulties, understanding that each experience was a classroom for the soul. Ethan shared his journey with a few friends, and they began their own practice. Each chose a moment in the day to pause and look deeply. After a few weeks, they found themselves calmer, less afraid, and more compassionate. True power, they discovered, did not come from control, but from gentle awareness and gratitude. Now, as you listen to these words, perhaps something within you is stirring to the familiar whisper of your inner light. Pause for a breath, inhale deeply, and ask yourself, today, what small thing holds something vast within it? For the moment you ask that question, the awakening has already begun. The universe is whispering through every drop of dew, every breath, and every heartbeat within you. The universal code of creation. In a small village, nestled among the deep green mountains of southern Italy, lived an artisan named Gabriel. Born into a family of blacksmiths, his hands grew familiar with fire and the echoing rhythm of hammer against metal. But Gabriel did not forge iron merely to earn a living. He believed that every piece of metal he touched carried a soul, a heartbeat of the universe waiting to be awakened. The villagers called him the gentle madman, for he would often spend hours gazing at a blade or a bracelet he had just finished, smiling as though listening to them speak. One evening, as the sunset painted his workshop in gold, a stranger arrived. She was an elderly woman with silver hair, wearing a deep blue cloak, her eyes bright with the wisdom of countless lifetimes. She paused before one of his works, a bronze disc engraved with intricate spiral patterns. She said softly, "You have carved the language of creation." Gabriel asked, "What language is that?" The woman replied, "The language you hear each time you fall silent, the language of the laws." She told him that from the stars in the sky to the smallest petals of a flower, all things move according to eternal principles. Nothing is random. Everything operates through silent, sacred laws. Gabriel invited her to sit beside the forge, and under the warm glow of the fire, she spoke of the three great laws of the universe. The first is the law of cause and effect. Every thought and every action is a seed, and it must bloom according to its nature. No thought is meaningless. All send out a signal into space, returning in another form. When one sows fear, confusion follows. When one sows faith, peace takes root. The second is the law of correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below. The way a seed germinates in soil is the same way the universe births the stars. The pattern of an ice crystal mirrors the structure of a galaxy. The human mind is a reflection of these same patterns. When you understand something small in life, you can understand something vast in the cosmos. The third is the law of vibration. Everything moves. Everything emits a frequency. From light to sound to thought, all is vibration. When you resonate with love, you attract what harmonizes with love. When you dwell in fear, you draw energies of fear. Gabriel listened as if her words were being etched into the air itself. He realized that his art had always followed these laws unconsciously. Each curve of the metal, each spark of fire obeyed the rhythm of the universe. That night, the woman departed in silence, leaving behind only a message written in silver ink upon a piece of parchment. You are a craftsman in the workshop of God. Every strike of your hammer awakens a star. From that day on, Gabriel's life changed. He began to observe everything with new eyes, the sound of water running through stones, the wind whispering through the pines, the ring of metal under his hammer, all part of the same symphony of law. He saw that what people called miracles were simply the natural results of living in harmony with these principles. Each morning he chose one law to reflect upon. Some days he focused on cause and effect, asking, "What seed shall I plant today?" He infused every word and action with kindness and noticed how smoothly the day unfolded. Strangers smiled. His work flowed easily. On other days, he practiced the law of vibration, beginning his morning with music he loved and carrying that joy through the hours, watching how pleasant experiences gathered around him. One evening he wrote in his journal, "I have realized that I no longer struggle with life. I am learning to collaborate with it." He shared these lessons with the children of the village through simple stories. He told them to observe, when someone speaks kindly, the whole room brightens. When someone grows angry, the air turns heavy. That is the law of vibration at work. When a person helps another and receives help in return, that is cause and effect. When a stream mirrors the sky, it is showing the correspondence between the small and the vast. As years passed, Gabriel's forge became a place people visited not just to buy his creations, but to feel the peace radiating from him. Each object he made seemed to glow from within, as though forged from gratitude itself. People said that touching his work calmed their hearts. One day, someone asked, "What is your secret to such harmony?" Gabriel smiled. "I do not control, I listen. The universe has its own rhythm, and when I keep myself in tune with it, nothing goes wrong." Gabriel's story is an allegory for every one of us. Each person is a craftsman in the great workshop of life. Every thought is a hammer's strike, every emotion a flame, and every action the shaping of molten metal. When we understand the laws of creation, we stop trying to fix the world and begin adjusting ourselves. Now, take the next 7 days to observe one of these 3 laws in your own life. Perhaps the law of cause and effect, notice the small seeds you plant. Or the law of correspondence, see what within you is reflected around you. Or the law of vibration, pay attention to the emotions you carry into each moment. Write down what you discover. Gradually, the larger picture will unfold. The universe has never been against you. It only responds to the energy you emit. And when you truly understand this, you will no longer see yourself as a victim of fate, but as a co-creator with the universe. In that moment, you begin to speak the language of creation, the language that only a still, listening soul can comprehend, the power of the mind. High upon a mountain where the clouds linger all year stood a small monastery called St. Ardent. There, among the scent of incense and the echo of ringing bells, lived a young monk named Michael. He had come to the monastery as a boy, carrying the same questions that trouble many hearts. Why does life hold such unexplainable suffering? Each day he meditated, chanted, and worked alongside his brothers, yet within him there remained a stone that seemed to block his breath. He longed for enlightenment, but the light always seemed far away, like a faint lamp at the end of a long corridor. One winter morning the sky was gray and the wind howled through the forest. As Michael stepped into the courtyard, he saw a great boulder blocking the path leading down to the valley. The rock had always been there, immovable and stubborn, forcing the monks to take a longer road whenever they traveled to the village. But that day Michael stopped and looked closely at the moss and cracks on its surface. He whispered, "Who placed you here, and what lesson do you bring?" He sat before the stone, breathing deeply, and became still. In that silence a thought arose. This stone is not outside me, it is within my mind. He realized that every obstacle in life begins as a fixed belief, a hardened thought. If he could change the thought, Perhaps the stone itself would move. From that day, Michael meditated before the boulder each morning. He imagined light passing through it, saw it grow lighter, softer, until it seemed to dissolve into the air. One misty morning, when he opened his eyes after meditation, the stone had shifted aside as if some unseen force had moved it, leaving the path open. Michael was not surprised. He bowed and whispered a quiet thank you. He knew that when the mind reaches perfect conviction, the physical world must obey. From then on, he taught those who came to the monastery a simple truth. The mind is the architect of all circumstances. What you see outside is only the walls, windows, and doors built from the thoughts within. He shared the story of a farmer named Samuel, whose land had long been barren. Samuel blamed the soil, the sky, and fate itself. One night he dreamed of an old man who told him, "Your field can only grow the seeds you plant in your mind." Waking with new understanding, Samuel began to believe that his land was fertile. Each morning he stood among his crops and gave thanks for the harvest as if it had already come. That year, for the first time in many seasons, his fields overflowed with grain. Michael used this story to teach that inner seeds determine the outer harvest. Thought is energy. When you plant worry, it grows into obstacles. When you plant peace, it blooms into ease. He often told his students, "Do not pray for the world to change. Change how you see it." He guided them through a morning practice. Sit quietly for 5 minutes, choose a desire, and imagine it already fulfilled. Do not say, "I wish," or "I hope." Simply feel it happening now. Gratitude, he said, is the water that nourishes the seed. Among his students was a young woman named Clara, burdened by fear and self-doubt. Michael taught her to focus on the feeling of abundance instead of lack. Each morning, she wrote down 3 things she already had, instead of 3 things she wanted. After several months, her life transformed, her work flourished, her relationships deepened, and an unfamiliar peace began to blossom inside her. One night, long after the monastery had gone quiet, Michael sat alone in meditation. The wind drifted through the pine forest, carrying its scent through the window. He felt each heartbeat, each breath, and sensed that he was part of a greater rhythm, the rhythm of the universe itself. He thought of the old boulder, of Samuel, of Clara. Each was only a different verse of the same teaching. The outer world is a mirror reflecting the inner mind. He wrote in his journal, "I am not one who fights the darkness. I am one who turns on the light." That sentence became his final teaching, left behind when he departed the monastery to continue his journey. And now, as you hear these words, pause for a moment. Let your mind grow still, like a lake before dawn. Choose one thing you wish to see in your life, a dream, a relationship, a moment of peace, and picture it as if it is happening now. Do not force it, simply feel it. Feel its warmth, its truth, its quiet joy. For when you feel something deeply enough, your mind begins to weave it into reality. The power does not lie in outer miracles, but in how you use your imagination. Imagination is the gateway to the unseen world where all possibilities wait. Remember, the world does not respond to what you say. It responds to the image you hold the longest in your heart. Choose the highest vision, nurture it with gratitude, and watch as it takes form. For such is the power of the mind. When you believe deeply enough, the entire universe believes with you. The symphony of vibration along the eastern coast of the United States, between rolling dunes and the deep blue sea, there was a small village where an old artist named Thomas lived. He had spent his life crafting strange instruments from pine wood and seashells. The villagers said his music was unlike any sound on earth, for whenever he played, the wind would still and the seabirds would circle above as if joining his melody. They called him the keeper of the ocean's frequency. Thomas often said he was not the creator of music, but the listener. Everything in this world, he told them, has its own frequency, its own song. When you truly listen, you can hear the voice of all things. To prove it, he plucked a single note on his wooden harp, and the waves rolled toward the shore in perfect rhythm, as though the ocean itself were replying. One day, a great storm came. The villagers fled for shelter, but Thomas stayed in his small home, playing his instrument in the heart of the wind. They thought he was mad. Yet when the storm passed, his house stood untouched among the ruins. A young man asked him, Why did your home not fall? Thomas smiled and said, Because I kept my light steady within the storm. When your frequency is stable, no wind can take anything from you. S4. His words spread through the region, and people began to learn how to listen and keep the rhythm of their own vibration. They discovered that human emotions are instruments too, radiating waves of energy into the space around them. When their hearts were joyful, the air felt lighter, the trees greener. But when they were angry or afraid, the world seemed heavy and gray. A young woman named Lily, who had long struggled with anxiety, came to Thomas for help. He handed her a small stone engraved with the shape of a wave and said, Each morning, place this stone on your chest, breathe deeply, and remember that your heart is the drum of the universe. Keep it steady for the song of your life. Lily followed his advice. She began to spend a few minutes each day in silence, listening to her heartbeat. Within a week, she found herself calmer, braver, and surrounded by small, unexpected blessings. Through such stories, Thomas taught that the universe moves as an infinite symphony. Every being is an instrument. When all vibrate together in love and gratitude, the music is flawless. But when someone drifts into anger or fear, the harmony falters. Thus, each person's task is to keep their vibration aligned with harmony. In his notebook, Thomas once wrote, Remember, creation cannot happen when your vibration wavers between fear and desire. Only in peace can the universe reflect your intention. One night, under a silver moon, Thomas sat by the ocean playing softly. A boy beside him asked, How do you know when you are vibrating at the right frequency? Thomas pointed to the sea. When you are at peace, the water within you is as still as this. When you are restless, waves rise inside. From then on, the villagers gathered by the shore each evening to meditate in silence. They closed their eyes, listened to their hearts, and imagined themselves as small lights upon the sea. Over time, the village changed. There were fewer arguments, less fear, richer harvests. They believed that when a community keeps a shared frequency of harmony, the world around them transforms. A young scientist came to study the phenomenon and measured an unusually steady electromagnetic field around the village. But Thomas only smiled and said, You can measure electricity, but you cannot measure faith. The storyteller now turns to you, the listener. If you are hearing these words, pause for a moment. Place your hand on your heart and feel its rhythm. What is it saying? What song is it playing, the song of fear or of peace? Every emotion you choose is a note you send into the symphony of life. For the universe does not understand the language of words. It understands only the language of vibration. You may say, I am strong, but if doubt still lingers within, that frequency does not carry far. Only when your whole being feels strength does the universe respond with matching opportunities. From today, begin a simple ritual. Each night before sleep, write down 3 emotions you felt most strongly during the day. Ask yourself, did they vibrate with love or with fear? By noticing them, you begin to master your own energy. Soon you will see that the days filled with positive vibration always bring small miracles, a chance encounter, good news, or simply a quiet sense of peace. And if you feel ready to act now, leave a sign below, write, I am ready to change, or simply the number 1. It is your declaration that you are aligning with the frequency of awakening hearts. Because when thousands of hearts vibrate together in love, the symphony of the world changes. The storms outside calm down, for the light within has become steady. Remember Thomas's words. Asterisk. When the light within you does not waver, no storm outside can take anything away. Asterisk. The compass of the heart. In the northern mountains of California, there is an ancient forest where dawn mist hangs like a thin veil between reality and dream. In the midst of that forest, inside a simple wooden cabin, lived a young woman named Maya. She was a wanderer with no fixed home, yet for many years her heart had been held by one question: how do I know the right path when my mind is no longer certain? Maya had worked many jobs, teaching, serving in a cafe, selling used books. Though she lived simply, her heart felt empty, as if something precious had been lost and she could not remember what it was. One afternoon, while walking through the woods, she saw a small path branching from the main trail. A warmth in her chest made her stop. The feeling did not come from reason. It rose from a dim calling. She breathed deeply, placed her hand on her chest, and heard her heart beat louder than the wind. She followed the path without knowing where it would lead. The winding way carried her through a narrow pass and across a stream, then opened into a grove flooded with golden light. At the center lay a flat stone like an altar of nature. She sat, closed her eyes, and felt her heart pounding as if it wanted to speak. In that moment, she understood that every time in her life she had found the right direction. It began with this sensation, a warm vibration in the middle of the chest. No reason, no plan, only knowing. From that day, Maya listened for that feeling whenever she had to choose. When a chill tightened her chest, she knew not to go. When it felt warm and wide, she understood she was on the right way. She called it the compass of the heart. On a journey along the Oregon coast, Maya met an older woman named Sophia. She was a healer who helped many overcome illness through gentle touch and a sincere heart. She said that in the past she had failed many times, even though she knew every remedy. I healed with my head, but the patient needed the heart. One night, while caring for a girl on the edge of death, a flood of feeling rose within her, love, pain, and gratitude. She did not try to do anything. She simply allowed the current of feeling to flow through her hands. A quiet miracle happened. The girl returned from the crisis. From then on, Sophia knew that true feeling is the strongest creative energy. It is the flame that burns doubt and lights intention. She told Maya that when you wish to create something, do not only think, you must feel. Those words awakened her. She saw that she had been living like someone reading a map with her eyes while never sensing direction with her heart. She practiced the exercise Sophia taught. Each morning she chose a small desire and imagined it already real. More important, she let the feelings of joy, gratitude, and love spread through her whole body. She did not force images, she bathed in feeling. Gradually, what seemed like coincidence began to happen. The person she needed appeared by chance. The door she was seeking opened at the right time. Once, as she stood by a lake, Maya watched ripples widen from a pebble she had thrown. She understood that feelings are the same. Each feeling sends a ring of energy into space and touches what resonates with it. Joy calls more joy. Love calls more love. When she felt full of love, everything around her softened. She wrote in her journal, "The heart does not speak in words, it speaks in vibration. When I resonate with love, the universe can only answer with miracles." Maya began teaching her friends how to listen to the heart. She told them, "Whenever you are confused, do not ask others. Ask the sensation in the center of your chest. If it opens, step forward. If it contracts, pause." Many later said they had avoided mistakes and found new directions through this way. One morning, in a small class where she taught meditation, Maya asked everyone to place a hand on the chest and repeat an affirmation, "My heart is the guiding light, and I trust its glow." She did not demand belief, she asked them to feel. A young man torn between two careers began to cry. He said it was the first time in months he felt at ease. Maya smiled. She understood that when people reconnect with their true feeling, they no longer need to search for signs outside. Feeling itself is the language the universe uses to guide us. At night, moonlight slipped through the window as Maya sat by the fire, hearing her heart beat softly like a sacred drum. She wrote, "When I think with the head, I hesitate. When I feel with the heart, I know." In that gentle light, she realized that the heart never errs, only the mind becomes afraid and leads us astray. If you are reading these lines, place a hand on your chest. Feel the warmth there. You may be standing at a crossroads, and your mind may be loud with reasons. Be quiet for a moment and listen to what the heart is saying. It may quicken slightly when you imagine a certain way. That is the sign. Your heart is a compass that does not lose direction. It does not use logic. It speaks with the vibration of truth. Each time you are honest with your feeling, you are on the right road. Each time you ignore it, you step away from yourself. Feeling is not a weakness. It is the strongest living energy. When you dare to love, to give thanks, and to trust, you open the door to miracles. From today, practice feeling more and thinking less. Trust the compass beneath your left ribs. It is the voice of the universe speaking in your own voice, the mirror of reality. In the deserts of Nevada, where the ground cracks under the sun and the sky shines like a sheet of glass, there stands a small temple few people know about. Locals call it the Temple of Reflection. Legend says that inside rests an ancient mirror, one that does not show your outer form but reveals the truth of your soul. Whoever has the courage to face themselves in its surface will discover why their life has unfolded as it has. One day, a merchant named Robert arrived there after years of failed ventures. Once wealthy and respected, he had lost everything through a series of misfortunes. Bitterness filled his heart, and he blamed fate, the world, everyone but himself. When he heard that the mirror in the temple could show the true cause of suffering, he came with a mix of hope and disbelief. Inside the temple was a single empty room bathed in gentle white light. The mirror stood silent in the center, its silver frame dulled by time. As Robert stepped closer, the reflection was not his face, but a swirling cloud of light that slowly took shape. He began to see scenes he had buried, moments of anger toward loved ones, harsh words he had spoken, the look of fear in the eyes of a friend he had betrayed. Each image pierced him like a needle. He screamed for it to stop, but the visions continued until he collapsed, trembling. Then a voice rose, calm and echoing. What you see out there is only the reflection of what you nurture in here. When Robert opened his eyes, the mirror now showed only himself, not a man of failure, but a weary soul burdened by resentment. He touched the glass, and warmth spread through his body. In that instant, he understood that to change the world outside, he must begin within. Robert left the temple and returned to the city. He stopped blaming others. Each morning, before starting his day, he stood before a simple mirror in his small room, looked deeply into his eyes, and said, "I am responsible for what I see." At first it felt uneasy, but gradually something shifted. People around him became gentler, opportunities began to appear, and faith in himself returned. His story spread, and people realized that the temple's mirror was only a symbol of a greater truth. Life itself is the perfect mirror of the inner world. Every event, every person, every challenge is an image born from thoughts and emotions within. When we live in fear, life reflects fear. When we live in gratitude, life mirrors grace. In that same desert, a gardener named Amara proved this truth in her own way. She lived on a barren plot of land where nothing was believed to grow. Yet every morning she stepped outside, touched the soil, and said, "Thank you for the life hidden within you." She treated the earth as a living being that could hear. She sang to her seeds, whispered stories to her plants. One season, tiny shoots appeared, and then more, until after 3 years, her barren land had turned into a lush green oasis. When asked her secret, she smiled and said, "The earth reflects the love I give it. When I believe it is dead, it dies. When I believe it lives, it lives." From Amara's story, many learned the power of belief. They saw that no land is truly lifeless, only hearts that are closed. When the heart opens, miracles happen. The same is true for your world. Every complaint emphasizes the shadow in the mirror. Every act of gratitude wipes the dust away. If you want to change what you see, do not fight the mirror. Adjust the expression of the one looking into it. Someone once asked, "If life is only a reflection, does that mean my pain is my fault?" The answer is no. Pain is not fault. It is a message. It shows that something inside you is asking to be seen and healed. When you embrace your pain with understanding, the mirror softens and the reflection begins to change. From today, try a small practice. Whenever something bothers you, a person, a situation, pause and ask, "What part of me does this reflect?" It might be fear, insecurity, or an old wound waiting for light. When you acknowledge it with compassion, the image outside will shift naturally. This world is not against you. It is faithfully responding to the energy you project. Just as a mirror cannot smile before you do, life cannot bless you before you give thanks. If you are hearing these words now, look around your space. Everything, the room, the people, the chances, and the challenges is a reflection of the deepest beliefs you hold. See them not as enemies, but as teachers. And ask yourself, is there something in your life that keeps repeating? Something that exhausts you, that you have never tried to see as a mirror of yourself? Think about it in silence. For the moment you dare to look, transformation begins. Remember this: the mirror of reality never lies. It only returns faithfully what lives within you. And when you change the energy of your heart, the reflection changes too, revealing a new world, brighter, softer, and filled with grace. The sacred symbols and the ancient language. In the western lands of the United States, near the Red Canyons of Arizona, there stands a sandstone temple hidden among the cliffs. The Navajo nomads call it the Temple of Breathing Signs. They believe that every carving and every symbol etched upon its walls holds the spirit of an ancient god whispering to anyone silent enough to listen. The elders of the tribe say, "The universe speaks in symbols." When you learn its language, life will no longer appear chaotic, but as a song with perfect rhythm. One day, a young apprentice named Daniel came to the temple seeking to understand this mystery. He had once studied archaeology and was skilled in decoding texts through logic, yet when he looked at the carvings here, his intellect failed him. The symbols seemed alive, flickering like fire, shifting shape every time he blinked. That night, as he sat by a torch feeling defeated, an old voice spoke from behind him. "You are trying to read with your mind, while these symbols open only with the heart." The voice belonged to an elder with copper skin, white hair, and eyes deep as an ancient well. He called himself Kayin, the keeper of the temple. He told Daniel to close his eyes and imagine that each symbol was not a letter but a breath. "Every breath," Kayin said, "is the thought of the Creator, and every symbol is the echo of that breath." Daniel obeyed, inhaling deeply, letting his mind merge with the wind moving through the stone walls. Then something extraordinary happened. The symbols began to glow in his inner vision, forming images: a shining spiral, a golden triangle, and a radiant circle at the center. Kayin smiled. "You are seeing the three sacred signs. The spiral is endless growth, the rhythm of the soul's evolution. The triangle is harmony between mind, body, and spirit. The circle is wholeness, where every beginning and ending meet as one." From that day, Daniel began to see these symbols everywhere. In the shell of a snail, he saw the spiral of life. In the mountain peaks, he saw the sacred triangle. In the drop of dew reflecting sunlight, he saw the eternal circle. Everything became a message of the universe written in its simplest form. Kayan taught, when the universe wishes to speak to you, it will not use words but symbols. A bird that appears again and again, a number repeating on receipts, an image that haunts your dreams, all are messages. Yet most people overlook them, calling them coincidence. Only when you slow down do you begin to read what lies beneath the surface. Daniel asked, "How do I know which symbols are meant for me?" Cain replied, "Whatever makes your heart tremble with recognition, that is your message." Olis. That answer became the foundation of Daniel's spiritual journey. Each morning he chose one symbol that called to him. Sometimes it was a leaf, sometimes the number 7, sometimes a late blooming flower in the garden. He meditated with it, watching what he felt when he looked at it. Gradually he realized that the meaning of symbols does not live in dictionaries but in experience. The leaf spoke of life's cycles, the number 7 whispered of completion. The flower taught him patience and divine timing. One night he dreamed of a phoenix flying around the sun, transforming into the words, "I am the light." When he woke, he understood it as the symbol of rebirth. He began to release his old beliefs and felt a lightness he had never known. Cain saw the change in his eyes and said, "When you learn the language of symbols, you begin to hear the voice of the soul. Everything in your life, from dreams to casual words to a falling leaf, is a letter from the source written for you." He added, "There are 3 layers of symbols you must remember. The layer of the body, physical signs such as fatigue or pain, are messages from within. The layer of emotion, persistent feelings, are symbols of what has not yet been healed. and the layer of the soul repeating images, numbers, or dreams are signals guiding your path. When you learn to read them, you will no longer see coincidence, only guidance. After 40 days, Daniel left the temple. When he returned to the modern world, everything appeared transformed. Street signs, the sound of traffic, even the colors of sunset carried messages. He realized that the universe has never been silent. Humanity has merely forgotten how to listen. That night he wrote in his journal, "Today I saw the circle of the moon reflected on the lake. I understood there is no beginning and no end. I am exactly where I am meant to be." And now, as you read this, ask yourself, have certain symbols been appearing around you lately? A number, an animal, an image in a dream, or a feeling that keeps returning? Do not dismiss them. They are not accidents. They are the private language of the universe speaking to you. Choose one symbol that draws your heart the most. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and imagine it before you. Do not rush to explain it. Simply feel what it brings: peace, warmth, inspiration. That feeling is the truest translation. When you do this often enough, the world becomes a living book. Every person you meet is a character, every event a chapter, and you are both the reader and the writer. And when you realize that everything holds meaning, fear disappears. For in every form, the flower, the rain, or even sadness, the hand of the source is gently touching you, guiding you toward the next step of your journey. The forgotten ritual. On the northern slopes of New Mexico lies a small village hidden among pine forests and clear mountain streams. There, people still keep the ancient customs that have survived for centuries, lighting candles before dawn, singing as the sun rises, and placing their hands on the earth to greet the new day. They call these acts the gratitude of life. To them, it is not superstition, but a way to keep the human spirit in harmony with the rhythm of the universe. In that village lived an old man named Elijah, known as the last keeper of the sacred rituals. He stayed in a wooden cabin on the hillside, where every morning, before the mist had lifted, he stepped outside barefoot, touched the earth, raised his hands to the sky, and whispered something only the wind could hear. One day, a young photographer from the city named Sarah arrived, searching for a story for her project on vanishing traditions. She asked him, "What are you doing, sir? Why do you touch the ground and look at the sky every day?" He smiled, his voice deep and kind. "I'm only speaking with the things that give me breath." "And do they answer you?" she asked half-jokingly. "Always," he said, "but only those who are silent enough can hear." The answer stirred her curiosity. She stayed for a few days and watched as he performed his quiet rituals, burning sage to purify the air, breathing deeply 3 times as the sun appeared, and giving thanks for simple things: the water, the soil, the wind, the light. Every gesture he made was unhurried, as though he was conversing with an old friend. One morning, Eli handed her a small jar filled with golden sand. "When you feel lost," he said, "open the jar and let a handful fall into your palm. Remember its touch, for this is the earth. It is where you came from and where you will return. You can never be lost if you remember to touch the ground." Sarah did as he said. When she opened the jar and let the sand slide through her fingers, an unexpected peace flooded her heart. No music, no ceremony, just a pure moment of connection with the living earth. For the first time in years, she felt truly present. She asked, "Why do such simple acts feel so powerful?" He replied, "Because they remind us of what the modern world has forgotten, that every action can be sacred when done with awareness." He told her that in ancient times, people began their day with gratitude not because they had much, but because they knew gratitude was the source of vitality. Modern people, Elia said, have abandoned their rituals and now carry emptiness. They chase happiness far away, while all they need is to pause and breathe. Sarah stayed in the village for 3 weeks. Each morning she joined the villagers for the sunrise ritual. They stood in a circle, holding hands, breathing in rhythm with the wind. No one asked for anything, they simply gave thanks. Slowly, Sarah felt herself change. Her mind grew quieter, her heart lighter, and everything seemed to flow more smoothly. She realized that ritual was not about pleasing the divine, but about tuning human vibration to the frequency of the universe. Before she left, Elia told her, "When you return to the city, keep a ritual for yourself, even a small one. Light a candle, or whisper gratitude before you sleep. Every act repeated with awareness becomes a bridge between the ordinary and the sacred." Sarah kept her promise. Back home, every morning she touched the small pot of soil on her balcony, took 3 deep breaths, and said softly, "Thank you for another morning of life." Within weeks, she noticed her creativity deepening, her photographs gaining warmth, and her heart no longer restless. She shared her experience with friends. Soon, each created their own ritual. Some gave thanks over a cup of tea. Some spent a few silent minutes before bed. Some wrote 3 blessings each night. And as they practiced, something beautiful happened. Their lives began to respond with small, consistent miracles. Rituals are not magic. They are the language of the soul. When you repeat an action with full presence, energy gathers, the mind pauses, and the doorway to spirit opens. Every mindful breath is a ritual. Every kind word is a prayer. Every act of love is an offering to life. Now, if you are listening, pause for a few seconds. Think of a moment in your day that could become a ritual. Perhaps when you wash your face, you could whisper, "I cleanse my weariness." When you drink water, you could say, "I receive life." Every action done consciously becomes a gateway into the present moment. And let me ask you, if you were to choose one ritual for yourself, a small act you would do each day to thank life, what would it be? Think of it. And if you wish, write it down. Your presence in that reflection is already a sacred energy in motion. Remember, the sacred is never far away. It lives in every breath, every gesture, every second you are truly here. When you touch the earth with bare feet and give thanks with an open heart, you are already performing the ritual of the divine in human form, breaking the chains of limitation. In the heart of New York City, where towers scrape the clouds and traffic never sleeps, lived a man named Jacob. He was a successful financial analyst, sharp and reliable, yet haunted by an invisible exhaustion. Every morning he woke like a machine, coffee, subway, meetings, deadlines, and returned each night to his small apartment under a sky of neon light. Though there were no bars around him, he felt trapped in a cage he couldn't see. One evening, walking home after work, Jacob passed through Central Park and noticed an old painter working by the path. On his worn canvas was the image of a bird, wings spread wide but tied by a thin thread. Beneath the painting were the words, "The cage is always open." Jacob stopped, staring. The painter smiled gently. "Do you see that bird?" he asked. "It has forgotten. It can fly." Those words followed Jacob into his sleep. For the first time, he wondered, asterisk, am I living like that bird too? Asterisk. The next day, he began observing his thoughts. He realized that most of them carried the same quiet tone of limitation. Asterisk, I'm not good enough. I can't change. I don't have a choice. Asterisk. Those sentences were the thread binding his spirit's wings. He understood that the prison was not outside him, but inside, built from beliefs he had never questioned. One weekend, Jacob left the city for a riverside town to rest. There he met an old woman selling second-hand books. Among the stacks was a thin volume titled Times the Walls of the Mind Asterisk. The woman said, "This book won't teach you how to surpass others, only how to surpass yourself." That night he read it in one sitting. A single line struck deep. No chain is stronger than the words, "I cannot." He decided to practice something simple. Each time a limiting thought arose, he replaced it with a new affirmation. Asterisk, I'm not good enough. Times became times. I'm growing stronger every day. Asterisk, asterisk, I don't have time. Times became times. I choose to make time for what matters. Asterisk, every morning he looked in the mirror and said, aloud, asterisk, I am worthy of freedom. Asterisk. At first, it felt meaningless, but slowly those phrases began to carry power. He started to feel taller, lighter, as if each link in his invisible chain was beginning to crack. He spoke up with new ideas at work, turned down things that drained him, and surprisingly, everything around him began to shift. His boss listened, colleagues supported him, new opportunities appeared. One night, Jacob dreamed he was in a dark room surrounded by massive walls made of the word times fear, asterisk. He touched one letter, and it dissolved into light. Then the others followed until the walls vanished and the room opened into a vast sky. When he woke, he knew the dream was not fantasy, it was the mirror of a mind being freed. He began sharing what he called times the freedom test, asterisk. If you want to know where you're still chained, he said, look at what you're afraid to lose. Every fear is a bar of the cage. You are free the moment you dare to touch it. Later, Jacob met the same painter again in the park and said, I think I found the key. The painter smiled. No, you didn't find it. You just realized it was in your pocket all along. Jacob started guiding others to recognize their limiting beliefs. He explained that when we believe something long enough, it becomes a private law of our universe. Yet the instant we question it, the law collapses. Behind every limiting belief lies a doorway to a wider sky, and you, reading this now, may also be carrying such beliefs. Perhaps you've told yourself you're not talented enough, not ready, not deserving, or that it's too late. But remember, those are only stories you've repeated until they sound like truth. In reality, the key has always been in your hands. Try something small right now. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and name the belief that has been holding you back. It could be times I don't deserve love times, or times it's too late to start again. Asterisk. Then look straight at it and say, asterisk. You are just a thought, not a truth. Asterisk. Replace it with a new declaration, strong, clear, alive, and speak it out loud so the vibration fills your body. Jacob often told his students, freedom begins when you replace times I can't, times with times I'm learning how I can. Asterisk. And truly, one new sentence can begin to reshape reality, because the universe always mirrors the beliefs you choose to hold. So now, if you're hearing these words, I invite you to a small ritual of freedom. In your heart, or even written down, declare, I am ready to change, or simply the number one. That small act is your signature that you're ready to step beyond your invisible cage. Each word you write is a link falling away, and as you do it, feel closely. Perhaps it's subtle, but your breath will deepen, your heartbeat will steady, and the air around you will seem brighter. That is the moment of liberation. Remember this truth. The cage has always been open. All you ever needed to do was step out, awakening the higher sense. At the summit of Mount Shasta, where people believe the spirits of the ancients still dwell within the mist, there stood a small cabin by a lake. Living there was a woman named Helena. She was neither monk nor prophet, yet everyone who met her said she could hear what others could not. Not voices, but feelings, a current of perception beyond thought. They called her the listener of the universe. One snowy afternoon, a young man named David came to find her. He was a successful engineer, yet after losing his job, his relationship, and his sense of meaning, he felt as if the world had gone silent. I've prayed, meditated, read everything I could, he told her, but I hear nothing. Has the universe forgotten me? Helena smiled and poured him tea. No, the universe has never been silent, she said. It's just that the noise in your mind has grown so loud that you can't hear anymore. She led David outside to the frozen lake. Listen to the water, she said. He laughed. There's nothing to hear, it's just ice. Helena placed a finger to her lips for silence. The wind paused. In that stillness, David felt something strange, not a sound, but a sensation, as though the lake itself was breathing. A wave of calm spread through him, deep and quiet. That, Helena whispered, is the true language of the universe, the silence that speaks. When you learn to listen with your heart, you'll hear guidance in every breeze, every glance, every faint intuition, every faint intuition. From that day on, David stayed to study with her. She taught him simple practices: to sit each morning for 5 minutes without thought, to feel each step when he walked, to listen not only to words but to the space between them. At first it seemed pointless, his mind kept resisting. But one night, as he watched the flame of a candle flicker, he felt a thought come from somewhere beyond himself. Asterisk. You are on the right path. Do not be afraid. Asterisk. He opened his eyes, heart pounding. No one had spoken, yet he knew he had just heard. Helena nodded. That is the voice of higher perception, the part of your soul that has always been speaking, waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear. David began recording every feeling and message he sensed during meditation or dreams. He noticed that these subtle impressions often guided him to the right place, the right people, at the right time. Once, before signing a major contract, he felt a heavy pressure in his chest and a quiet urge saying, asterisk, check again. Asterisk, he followed the feeling and discovered a serious error in the document, an error that could have cost him dearly. When he told Helena, she smiled. You weren't saved by luck, she said. You were saved because your intuition finally woke up. Helena taught that every person possesses this higher sense, a sixth sense, that connects directly to the source. But people forget it because they trust logic more than wisdom. The mind analyzes, she said, but the soul feels. Only when both work together can you see the whole picture. She shared 3 laws for awakening intuition. First, asterisk. Silence opens the channel. Asterisk. When you are quiet, the line between you and the universe becomes clear. Second, asterisk, emotion is the compass. Asterisk, warmth and ease mean you're aligned. Heaviness or tightness is a signal to stop. Third, asterisk, belief is the key. Asterisk, the universe cannot send signals to someone who believes they are unworthy to receive them. David practiced daily. He learned to trust the first feeling before every decision. Many times it saved him from mistakes. Sometimes it led him down harder paths, yet the outcome was always right in the end. After 6 months, he returned to the city carrying a deep peace. When friends asked for his secret, he said, I learned to listen not with my ears, but with my soul. He realized that higher intuition is not a mystical gift, but the natural state of anyone who lets go of fear and listens more deeply. One afternoon, walking through a crowded street, David suddenly felt a strong impulse to stop at a corner. He obeyed, and a moment later a large signboard crashed down exactly where he was about to step. He smiled, not out of shock, but gratitude. He knew he was moving in harmony with an unseen rhythm. Later, Helena sent him a letter. When you truly learn to listen, you will never be lost, for the path itself is always speaking to you. If you are reading this now, try to listen a little. Don't look for booming voices or dramatic signs. Pay attention to the small sensations, the nudge to call someone, the whisper to turn a different way, the urge to rest even when there's work to do. These are not coincidences, but subtle directions from a higher plane. So let me ask you, when was the last time you heard an inner voice you couldn't explain, but it turned out to be right? Think of that moment, because it is proof that your higher perception is still alive. Trust it. Nurture it with silence, with gratitude, and with the courage to follow it even when logic trembles. One day you will see you never need to ask the universe what to do. For you, times are times part of the universe, and its wisdom already flows through every beat of your heart. The frequency of creation. In the heart of vibrant Los Angeles, where the city never sleeps under its neon pulse, there lived a pianist named Evelyn, once called the Fingers of Light. Yet in recent years, her gift had grown dim. Her performances were technically flawless, but her music had lost its soul. One evening, in the middle of a concert filled with thunderous applause, Evelyn suddenly felt hollow. Tears fell onto the keys as she realized, asterisk, I'm playing music, but I can no longer hear myself. Asterisk. She left the city and retreated to a small wooden house by the California coast. Each morning she sat before the ocean, listening to the rhythm of waves instead of applause. There was no schedule. No audience, only the pulse of her heart and the song of the sea. Gradually, she noticed something profound. The waves never played the same rhythm twice, yet they were always in perfect harmony with themselves. One morning, as the tide rolled in, a whisper stirred within her. Everything is music, and you are part of the song. And as to kind, from that moment, Evelyn began to feel vibration not only in sound, but in everything around her, the wind, the sunlight, even her breath. She realized that the universe was not still, but a vast symphony of invisible frequencies, and human beings with their thoughts and emotions were the instruments within it. She began to experiment. Sitting before her piano, she played a simple melody while holding gratitude in her heart. The notes sounded different, warmer, fuller, alive. She understood that emotion itself was a form of vibration, an energy that radiated beyond words or movement. When we are angry, we emit low frequencies. When we love, we resonate at higher ones. The universe, in turn, responds in perfect resonance with what we send out. Evelyn began living like a scientist of emotion. Every morning she would tune her soul as a musician tunes strings. When she felt heavy, she imagined golden light filling her body. When fear arose, she shifted her focus to gratitude. She called it the art of soul tuning. One day, a man named Nathan, who had once heard her play, came to visit. "I don't know why," he said, "but when I hear your music, I cry." Evelyn smiled. "Because I don't play notes," he said. "I play vibration." She placed his hand over her heart. "Can you hear it?" she asked. After a pause, he whispered, "I hear my own heartbeat inside yours." Evelyn nodded. That is the frequency of creation. When two hearts vibrate in love, the universe begins to sing with them. Ours. Together, they began hosting silent concerts, gatherings where people sat with eyes closed while Evelyn played melodies woven from pure feeling. No applause, no words, only stillness. Many who attended said they felt something heal within them. A woman who had suffered years of insomnia wept softly and said, "I felt light move through my heart." Evelyn came to understand that the frequency of creation lives not only in music, but in every thought and feeling we hold. Each loving idea sends out a higher tone into the field of existence, and the universe echoes back with people, events, and opportunities that match it. She began teaching others how to play the music of their own life. Her first lesson was simple. Asterisk. Pay attention to emotion. Asterisk. Whenever you feel irritation or sadness, treat it as a note out of tune. Don't reject it. Just recognize it and gently shift to a higher note. Gratitude, compassion, forgiveness. When your soul is tuned, life itself harmonizes. In her small seaside class one day, Evelyn told her students, "The world was not created by the first action, but by the first emotion. Love before you act, be grateful before you receive, trust before you see." Nathan asked, "How do we stay in that frequency when life gets chaotic?" She smiled. "By returning to the center, the heart. Every vibration begins and ends there. When the heart opens, the universe opens." So, together they created a simple ritual called Times the Moment of Tuning. Asterisk. Each morning or evening you sit quietly for 5 minutes, place your hand over your heart, think of something you're deeply grateful for, and smile softly. Instantly your energy shifts. That, Evelyn said, is when you become an instrument of the divine. If you are reading this now, try it. Place your hand on your heart, take a deep breath, and recall a memory that fills you with gratitude, a smile, a sunrise, the simple gift of breathing. Let that warmth spread through your body like golden light. That feeling is the frequency of creation moving within you. Whenever you sustain this vibration, you transform not only yourself, but the space around you. People feel calmer near you. Your work flows more easily, and small miracles begin to appear. Because the universe does not listen to words, it listens to vibration. It does not answer what you say, but what you times radiate. Asterisk. And now I ask you, If you could choose one frequency for your life, just one, what would it be, love, peace, or faith? Let your heart answer, for that choice will become the song you send into the universe from this very moment. Decoding reality. On a quiet street in San Francisco, there was a cafe called Time's Synchronicity. Time's a word that means meaningful coincidence. Its owner, Leo, had once been a software engineer, but after a series of life-shattering events, he quit his job, sold everything, and opened this cafe. When people asked him why, he simply smiled and said, "Because a string of coincidences told me it was time to change." His story began on a rainy afternoon. In one day, he lost his job, his girlfriend left, and his landlord demanded the apartment back. Sitting on a park bench, defeated, a piece of paper blew against his leg. On it was a quote from a book he'd loved as a child. Asterisk, when every door closes, look around. Perhaps the wall has opened. Asterisk. He looked up, and right across the street was a small coffee shop with a sign that read, "For sale." A warmth pulsed through his chest, as if something whispered, "Asterisk, this is the door." Within weeks, he used his savings to buy the cafe and named it Time's Synchronicity Times to honor that moment. From the day it opened, strange things began to happen. Strangers would walk in, share stories of coincidences, realize they were connected in some way, and go on to start businesses, fall in love, or find clarity they'd been seeking. Leo would laugh softly and say, "I don't believe in randomness anymore. Reality is a language, and coincidence is how the universe speaks." He started recording these daily signs, a song that played at the exact moment he thought of someone, a number repeating on receipts, a stranger's words echoing what he'd been pondering. The more he noticed, the clearer the patterns became, forming an invisible map guiding him forward. He realized that the universe is never silent. It speaks constantly through every detail of life. You just have to pay attention. Asterisk. One afternoon, a woman named Clara entered, nervous and weary. She said she was considering leaving an unhappy marriage, but feared what lay ahead. Leo gestured toward a wall filled with hundreds of cards, stories from guests about their meaningful coincidences. He asked her to pick one at random. It read, "Asterisk freedom doesn't come from knowing the path, but from trusting the first step." Asterisk tears welled in her eyes. The card, she later learned, had been written by Leo a year earlier, right after he quit his old job. A week later, Clara returned, smiling, free and thankful. Leo realized then that reality works, like a mirror that speaks. Whenever we are lost, it sends us signals, a phrase, a song, a coincidence, to remind us we are still on the path. Most people miss them because they are too busy scrolling screens or rushing through their days. He wrote on a wooden board behind the counter, "Reality doesn't need your control, only your attention." During a meditation class he hosted in the cafe, Leo guided everyone through an exercise called listening to reality's language. He told them, "Today, don't try to make anything happen. Just notice. If you see repeating numbers, hear the same phrase more than once, or meet someone who reminds you of something, take it as a message meant for you." A young woman named Mia shared that she had seen a yellow butterfly land on her shoulder that morning, and then kept seeing the same image on a magazine cover, on a billboard, even on her coffee cup. Leo asked, "What did you feel when you saw it?" She answered, "Peace, like something telling me to trust the process." He smiled. "Then that times is times the message." He explained, "The universe doesn't send signs to make you superstitious, but to help you trust life's rhythm. When you live with awareness, you'll see that everything happens for a reason, to teach you, to guide you, or to protect you." One morning, cleaning the cafe, Leo found a small note under a chair that read, "Asterisk, there are no accidents, only the arrangements of consciousness. Asterisk." He didn't know who wrote it, but he pinned it to the mirror so everyone could see. Soon Synchronicity Times became more than a cafe. It became a sanctuary where people came not just for coffee, but to hear the universe. A student said, Whenever I'm confused, I come here, sit quietly, and somehow the answer appears through a stranger sitting beside me. Leo would smile because he knew the truth. Time's reality always reflects your level of presence. Asterisk. If you're reading this now, pause for a moment. Look around the space you're in. Is there something that keeps repeating in your life lately? A number, a song, a word, or a person who appears at the right moment? Don't dismiss it as chance. Ask yourself, asterisk, what is the universe trying to tell me? Asterisk. Because the moment you ask, you begin to hear. The more you pay attention, the clearer the message becomes. Slowly, you'll see that you don't live in a chaotic world, but in a finely written story where every detail has purpose. So let me ask you, when was the last time a coincidence made you smile? Did you remember it? Tell that story, because sharing it is how you tell the universe. Asterisk, I am listening. Reality speaks through the poetry of coincidence, and those who learn to listen never feel lost again. Open your awareness and let the world become your living book each day, each sign, a verse written by the divine just for you, facing the darkness. In the mountains of Oregon, surrounded by pine forests and streams, there stood a small monastery so silent that one could hear the sound of leaves falling. Within it was a special chamber, no windows, no light, only a thin mat and a single candle. They called it times the Room of Shadows. Asterisk. Whoever entered had to spend the night alone, face to face with themselves. It was said that whoever dared to meet their own shadow would rediscover their true light. One autumn night, a man named Marcus arrived, a well-known motivational speaker who once told thousands to think positive and stay strong. Yet deep inside, he knew he was wearing a mask. He suffered from insomnia, sudden panic, and a quiet emptiness he couldn't explain. The abbot, seeing through his confident smile, said only, "Your light is so bright that even you can't see your own shadow. Tonight, go and meet it." Marcus stepped into the dark room. The door closed, and silence swallowed him. At first, he sat in meditation, trying to stay calm. But as hours passed, his mind began to scream. Memories he had buried for years surfaced: his cold, distant father, the lies he told to earn applause, the people he had hurt in the name of ambition. The darkness around him became a mirror, reflecting every part of himself he had refused to see. He trembled, wanting to flee, but then he heard the voice of the Master echo within. "Do not run. Look at it until you realize it is part of your light." Marcus sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He saw the child within him, lonely, afraid of being unloved, desperate to prove his worth through perfection. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I forced you to be strong for too long." As he spoke, a warmth spread from his chest. The room was still dark, but it no longer frightened him. For the first time, he didn't try to push the darkness away. He embraced it. At dawn, when the door opened, light poured in and Marcus stepped out. The glow wasn't only from the sun, it was in his eyes. The abbot asked, "What did you see?" Marcus smiled softly. "The darkness wasn't against me. It just wanted to be seen." From that day on, Marcus returned to his work, but his message changed. He no longer preached false positivity. He spoke of time's truth, times of being brave enough to be sad, to be angry, to be vulnerable. "We cannot heal by denying what hurts," he said. "Only by touching our pain can we learn to love ourselves." At one talk, a woman named Emma, who had battled depression, listened in tears. "I've spent my life pretending to be strong," she confessed. Marcus walked off the stage and embraced her. "It's okay," he said. "Light doesn't need you to be perfect. It only needs you to be honest." Those words transformed her. Every night, she began writing letters to her own darkness, confessing the things she'd never dared to say: her envy, her loneliness, her feelings of not being enough. Each letter brought both tears and relief. Months later, she said, "I no longer want to run. My pain and I now sit at the same table." Marcus told her, "When you look directly at your shadow without judgment, it dissolves and becomes understanding." The master had once told him a simple truth: In the blackest night, if you hold a candle, your shadow remains. But if you embrace your shadow, you will see the light that exists between the two. He meant that darkness is not an enemy, but a doorway to freedom. If you are reading this, pause for a moment. Think of something within you that you have been avoiding, a fear, a failure, a memory that stings. Don't turn away from it. Look at it as an old friend returning to remind you that you still feel, that you are still alive. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, asterisk, I give myself permission to be imperfect. Asterisk, as you said, your body will soften because it recognizes truth. Marcus would end every talk with a question. What part of you have you not yet dared to face, but deeply wish to heal? Let that question echo inside you. Sometimes, simply daring to look is already half the journey to healing. Darkness does not come to punish, it comes to guide you back to what was forgotten. And when you finally step into it, you will see that even in the deepest night, there is always a single point of light. That point is you, whole and free. The Temple of Silence. In the vast desert of Utah, where the wind sings all day and sand stretches to the horizon, there lies a place known as Time's the Temple of Silence. Asterisk. It has no walls, no roof, only a circular clearing surrounded by pale white stones. People say that those who sit there long enough can hear the voice of the universe, not through sound, but through a deep knowing within. A woman named Rachel came to this place after years of living in noise and storms. She had been a celebrated journalist, always chasing stories, deadlines, and recognition. But one day, during a live interview, her voice simply vanished. Doctors found nothing wrong with her vocal cords. They called it temporary voice loss. But deep inside, Rachel understood the mind had grown so loud that the soul had to silence her. She left the city in search of stillness. When she arrived at the desert, the locals showed her the way to the temple. The first time she sat in that open space, the wind brushed her skin and sand rolled softly across her feet. Her mind shouted, "What am I doing here? Why is silence so frightening?" She wanted to leave, but a whisper from her heart said, asterisk, stay. Stay until the noise fades. Asterisk. The first hour was unbearable. She heard her heartbeat, her breath, then the flood of memories, arguments, deadlines, voices, sirens. One by one they surfaced and then dissolved like waves retreating from shore. As the sun sank, only breath and vastness remained. In that moment, Rachel felt something extraordinary. She was no longer separate from the world. She was part of its pulse. She didn't times hear times the universe. She times was times the universe breathing. She returned the next day and the next. Each sitting peeled away another layer of noise, revealing a deeper quiet. One afternoon, as the wind softened to a sigh, a phrase rose within her, not in words but in understanding. Asterisk, you do not need to speak to be understood. Asterisk, tears filled her eyes. All these years she had used language to prove she existed, forgetting that true existence needs no sound. Rachel stayed 7 days. She did nothing but sit, watch the light change, and feel the wind move the sand. She discovered that silence is not the absence of sound. It is times the space where all sound finds meaning. Asterisk. In silence, the wind becomes music, the heartbeat becomes a drum, and stillness becomes the prelude to creation. One morning, as dawn painted the dunes gold, a gentle current of energy flowed through her, warm, luminous, alive. She understood that she was touching a deeper layer of awareness where questions dissolve and clarity remains. She no longer needed answers, because everything was already clear. When she returned to the city, she didn't go back to journalism. She opened a small sanctuary called Time's the Temple Within. Asterisk. There she taught no technique, no philosophy, only 10 minutes of stillness each day. People came, sat quietly, and found themselves sleeping better, thinking clearer, feeling wrapped in a quiet presence that softened their hearts. A man once asked her, how can just sitting still heal anything? Rachel smiled, because in silence you stop fighting yourself. Soften. She explained that in true stillness, the mind stops running between past and future. The heart loosens its grip on fear. and life's energy flows again. Healing doesn't need effort, it happens naturally when resistance ends. One evening, after a group session, she asked her students, "Do you know what the most powerful sound in the world is?" Someone guessed thunder, another said waves, another music. She shook her head. "No, it's the sound of silence, because it contains them all." And a second, if you're reading this now, try this simple act. Sit still, put your phone aside, take 3 slow breaths, listen to your heartbeat, listen to your breath moving in and out. Then listen to the space between each breath. That is where the universe meets you, not in noise, but in the pause between sounds. Notice what arises when you do nothing. It might be a memory, a feeling, or a calm, so deep it feels like home. Whatever it is, let it come and go. Don't judge. Silence doesn't ask you to be good, it only asks you to be present. Rachel would often tell her students, everyone carries a temple of silence inside. You don't need a desert, just close your eyes, and every path leads there. And she always ended her sessions with one gentle question. When was the last time you were truly silent without feeling empty? Let that question stay with you as an invitation. In silence, you lose nothing, you simply reclaim the parts of yourself hidden beneath the noise. The universe was born from an explosion, but every truth is heard in silence. When you touch that silence, you no longer search for the divine, for you are already within it. The inner field of energy. After many years of searching, a healer named Amara returned to her small home in the valley of Sedona, where the red rocks glowed like fire each sunrise. People said Sedona held one of the strongest magnetic fields in America, a place where those who visited could feel the swirling currents of the earth itself. To Amara, it was more than sacred land. It was a mirror of the energy within every human being, powerful, fluid, and always capable of healing itself. Each morning she walked to the center of the valley, standing among 4 spiral-shaped stones she had built, and began her practice called Times the Inner Field of Energy, Times the final teaching she offered to her students. She raised her hands toward the sky, closed her eyes, and breathed deeply. In silence, she felt energy rise from the earth, through her feet, move through her knees, her belly, her chest, and finally flow out through the crown of her head as golden light. This, she said softly, is how the soul speaks to the universe, not through words, but through frequency. One day, a young student named Daniel came to her and said, "I've learned so many methods, yet every time I feel balanced, I fall back into exhaustion. How can I stay in high energy without being drained by the world?" Amara smiled gently. "Because you still believe energy comes from outside," she said. "But in truth, you are the source." She led him to a quiet stream, its surface shimmering in sunlight. "See this?" she asked. "The water never tries. It simply flows, because it knows its strength comes from movement." She pointed to his chest. "You are the same. When your energy is trapped by fear, resentment, or unexpressed emotion, you feel empty. But when you let it flow through breath, gratitude, and forgiveness, you become an endless spring." That night, she taught him a ritual called Times the Breath of Light. Asterisk, they sat facing each other with closed eyes, inhaling deeply as they imagined golden light entering through the top of the head. On each exhale, they pictured the light expanding through the body and radiating outward. After 10 minutes, Daniel opened his eyes and whispered, "I feel like I'm glowing." Amara smiled. "You are." She explained that the human body is an energetic field connected to everything. Every emotion, every thought vibrates outward. When you are angry, your field contracts. When you love, it expands, aligning with the rhythm of the universe. Imagine, she said, every time you smile, a small wave of light travels hundreds of miles. The world doesn't change through grand acts. It transforms through the gentle vibrations repeated every day. During his days in Sedona, Daniel learned to sense energy in everything, the morning light, the warmth of a hand, the silence in another's gaze. He realized the world was not solid as he once thought. It was a soft, responsive current that mirrored his inner state. When he was calm, life around him softened. When he was grateful, new doors appeared. Before he left, Amara said, "If you want to keep your energy high, remember three things. First times, be grateful before you receive. Asterisk. Second times, give before you expect. Asterisk. Third times, forgive before you sleep. Asterisk. Each one opens the flow inside you." She placed a hand over his heart and added, "And remember, energy doesn't need to be found, it only needs to be felt." Driving away, Daniel stopped to watch the Sedona sky glowing red and gold. A warmth rose in his chest, not emotion, but connection. He realized he was no longer a seeker. He was part of the light that had always been shining through him. Back in the city, he carried this lesson into his life. Each morning, before touching his phone, he sat quietly for 5 minutes, feeling the current of energy move within him. When meeting others, he looked into their eyes and thought, asterisk, we share the same source, asterisk. His relationships softened, new opportunities appeared. People called him lucky, but he knew it wasn't luck, it was resonance. If you are reading this now, know that within you too lies a field of energy. It is your soul itself. When you are tired, it contracts. When you love, it expands. When you are grateful, it shines. And when you are still, it harmonizes with the vibration of the universe. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Feel the current rising from the earth, through your body, flowing through your heart, and radiating outward as light. Whisper softly, asterisk, I am one with the universe. Asterisk, if your heart warms as you say it, that is not imagination, it is truth. Now ask yourself, what kind of energy are you sending into the world each day? Fear or love, doubt or gratitude? The answer will reveal the reality you are creating. Remember, you do not merely live in the universe, you are its rhythm. When you hold your light steady, everything around you begins to shine. And that is the secret of the awakened ones. They don't wait for miracles, because their times are times the miracle.